Hey guys, I hope your day is going well. I want to focus this video around what to do when things get serious. And I want to explain what I mean because I think it's one of the most crucial moments that any of us could ever face in our professional and our lives just in general. So, let me take you back here several years to a time before my wife and I had children. We have a almost 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, both boys, at the house right now, dealing with all the craziness that comes of that. But it wasn't always the case, And I remember when Erin first became pregnant with our first, Mickey, the sea change that happened, and it didn't happen like in the movies. It didn't happen all in this one cinematic moment, but it happened in the run-up. She was pregnant, and as she came closer to her due date, these deep internal shifts that had started once I found out that we were going to be a family in that way just emanated outwards and became a completely life-changing thing. You see, prior to us having children, I was doing okay. We were doing all right by certain standards. But if I was going to be brutally honest with myself, there were certain limitations that I had, both about myself and about the work that I did and where I wanted to go, my vision for the future, if you will, that was limited to a degree, Having a sense of purpose or knowing where I was going to go, that was never a real problem for me. That was never an issue. But what I kept coming up against was the fact that, when it was just me and what I wanted, or maybe by extension what me and my wife, what we were going for, there was always a certain limitation. There were always things that I accepted about myself that I knew were not good enough, or not far enough along, or not fulfilling enough, that I was willing to say, well, yeah, but that's later. I don't have to worry about it right now. I'm only X years old. I'm only X years into being a career coach. I've got plenty of time. And when I knew that there was a child on the way, that all changed, because I looked around at this whole life that I had built up to that point, and all of those things that I was willing to resign myself to, I just couldn't do it anymore. Because all of a sudden, it wasn't just about me. It wasn't just about the same players. There was someone new who was coming into the picture, and now I had to say, okay, Anish, so those limitations were fine for you. Are they going to be fine enough for your son? Are they going to be fine enough for your children and your family? Are you willing to gift them these limitations? Because every limitation that you choose to accept over the period of your life, that becomes you. That becomes a crucial part of who you are. It's not just the good things. They're going to see the bad things. They're going to see their father come up against a problem, and rather than face it head on, he retreated. And that changed my entire life, because I realized that I wasn't willing to do that. And so what happened is, in those whirlwind 9 months that Erin was pregnant with Mickey, I just started doing everything and anything I could to learn as much as I could and try as much as I could. I lost whatever remaining fear I had about doing something, and I just started, I started taking every course, every program, business development, interviewing, LinkedIn, whatever and anything, esoteric philosophy, whatever I could get my hands on, whatever was interesting me, because I knew I didn't have the answers yet, because I wasn't the person that I was going to be, who was going to be at that higher level. And so I had to figure that out. I had to just reinvent and add and add and add. And I had to do it with some sense of urgency, because there was a ticking clock there. It was emotional. That's the thing. When things get serious, the reason we don't want to really look at it oftentimes is because if we do, it's deep emotion. It's deep insecurity sometimes. It's deep fear. It's deep love, loss, grief, right? When you lose a huge job, when you, lose something that's precious, a lot of times we just want to keep our heads down and do it. But things have gotten serious in that mode, and a lot of times we're scared of looking at it head on in that way. So it was emotional to me, and I was willing to just look at this thing and accept that my life was not good enough in its current way, and start fighting. And that ultimately woke me out of my apathy. That emotion woke me out of my apathy. And I want to really make this really clear, which is, you're not going to get to the place that you want to go, especially if you have a very high dream, on rationality alone. You're not going to get there based on logic and this is the right step for me to take, because over a long enough period of time, the only thing that charges us up is emotion, is feeling it in our gut that this is something that must happen. And even though I had dreams and even though I had plans to keep improving and developing myself before children came into the picture, for me, in that moment in time in my life, that was the thing that just broke me out, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to get out of this now. I've got to change now. And that emotion fueled the change. And so maybe it was something else in your life or something else that you're dealing with, right? Maybe there is some other big change that you're not looking at. But I encourage you to look at it, because if you find the emotion in there to change your life, to say this is not good enough and I want more, that's going to propel you forward through all the ups and the downs. I made a lot of mistakes during that year, almost year that my wife was pregnant with Mickey, but they weren't really, because there were missteps on the road towards becoming a better version of myself, contributing in a higher way. And my business grew faster than it ever had before in that year, but it skyrocketed the year afterwards, but it wouldn't have happened without that pain, without seeing it for what it was. Like, this is a moment that my life had gotten serious. And it's okay when your life gets serious. It's okay when life throws down a gauntlet at you. That's the way ideally our lives should go. They should get progressively more serious. But the question is, will you accept that? Will you accept that challenge, And so, that's my first piece of advice, which is, if something serious has happened or is about to happen in your life, have the courage to not keep avoiding, but to look at it, straight out and say, what am I dealing with here, and what are the implications? The other thing is to let someone else in. It wasn't until I had gotten to a point where my life had to change. It had to change. It had to get better now, that I really started getting honest. With me, it was my wife, Erin, and showing her what I was doing, showing her, letting her in, because I wasn't, up until that point, even with my wife, I was showing a curated version of what I did at work. And when you show something like that, how can people ever really help you? You have to show them the messiness. And I was very afraid of really doing that with anyone, because I felt like they would see these mistakes and they would judge me. Well, she didn't judge me when I saw it, but she was able to look at things from the outside and lend some perspective. That's what I did every day. That's what I do every day as a coach, is I lend that kind of perspective towards people who are dealing with struggle and helping them get to where they're going a lot faster. But I had to do that with myself, and that also can be a really good benefit of when you're dealing with a truly serious situation, is that find an accountability partner. Find one person that you can really show what you're going through with and allow them a chance to chime in. Someone who has your best interests at heart, that can really help you turn a moment of seriousness into a moment of truly positive change. You can't do it alone. We're not meant to deal with all of this stuff in a vacuum. Take it from someone who has made that mistake and regretted it many a time before in my career. Write down what's going on. Take it out of this realm, because this is so subjective. I can't tell you how many times I was able to have the strength or find some way out of a deep problem when I got it out of my head and say, okay, here's what I'm dealing with. Here's what I like. Here's what I don't like. Here's the problem. Sometimes when you look at it, and you written out, you will realize, it forces perspective. Sometimes it's like, oh, okay, it's not that big of a deal. It's not something that I was that I should be freaking out about right now. Other times when you see it, it truly holds you accountable. And so if there's a big change in your life, to actually see it there and say, wow, for example, I have habitually had promises broken at this company, and what I thought I was going into is not what I received, and I can't make any more excuses about that. That's a moment that something has shifted, right? And so when you write it out, sometimes you can look at that and say, oh, you know what? Anyone else would be forced to make an action here. And so get out of your head. Stop keeping it in your head and keeping it private. Get it out. Communicate it in some way. Have someone who can hold you accountable. And beyond everything else, be willing to look at this thing in the eye. You're going to realize that it's not really a golem, these moments of seriousness, they may feel like a catastrophe, but they're usually just a powerful warning sign that life is giving us, that is calling us to be more now. And it's saying the time for action is now. The time for action is now. And that is the biggest blessing I have gotten from looking at these moments fully and committing to the fact that I have to shed my skin now, and become something more. So if life is calling to you in that way, I urge you to look at it in its face. And I urge you to take up the gauntlet that is being asked, because that is the way that our lives are supposed to go. We should be called to higher and higher action and higher challenges. It means there's more left for you to become. And what a wonderful testament to a life worth living that is. And so I hope that has been helpful. These are some of the things that I've certainly thought about and struggled with in these moments, these critical moments in my life. I hope that's been helpful to you, and I would love to hear about your experiences on this front. Drop me a line, comment, connect with me, let me know. Thank you, guys.